Happy Tuesday. All right, a few things. Dow Jones, S&P, we're down. Not huge, but significantly. NASDAQ, oddly enough, was up. We'll talk about that in a second. Before I get into that, I have a funny story. I think it's funny. So Saturday, I did a chemical peel on my face, just because. I mean, why not? And it does what you think it does. It's a chemical, right? It burns off some layers of your skin. So, fast forward to Sunday. My face is like bright red, just like sunburn. I mean, it's the same thing, right? Pretty much. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I was out with my kids, and I somehow managed to run over a street sign. Don't ask. I actually think I'm a pretty good driver, but this is an anomaly. Leveled it, right? So I called the local police, and I was like, hey, I leveled a sign, we're all safe, but, you should probably come out and look, and on and on. So the police officer comes out, and he looks at me, and my face is bright red, like a lobster. And I'm sure he thought I was, like, on something, right? And so he's like, ma'am, are you okay? And I looked at him, and I'm like, oh, I had a chemical peel yesterday. And he was like, oh, okay, great. Anyway, such is life. Happens all the time. Markets. Dow Jones down 1%. S&P down. Why? The CPI report came out today for the month of June. So compared prices from June of this year to June of last year. It actually was in line with expectations. It was 2.7%. If you exclude food and energy, it was 2.9%. That was in line also. However, when you dig into the details of it, it goes into like super, like eggs, travel, homes. I mean, it's very detailed, right? But you start looking at it, and the view was some of these tariffs are starting to have some impact. We're starting to see increase in prices. Okay? I'm not going to go through all the details. Like we can talk about eggs, we can talk about houses, whatever. But that kind of spooked the markets a little bit because they're like, oh man, are we at the beginning stages of inflation? And are these tariffs really now trickling through? So, yeah, that's what happened. And I'm going to talk about tariffs in a minute because there's something super important that I want to talk about. Before I do that, I mentioned the NASDAQ was actually up, right? Let's remind ourselves. The NASDAQ, we always call it the tech-heavy NASDAQ, right? It has a lot of technology names, healthcare names, biotech names, that kind of thing, high-growth stuff. So why was it up? One reason. There's a company called Nvidia, if you don't know what kind of company it is. It's a semiconductor company, and they're really heavy into making semiconductors for artificial intelligence. Your stock has been on fire. They have a ginormous market cap. And so why did that affect the NASDAQ? Don't know if I've said this before, maybe. But these markets, Dow Jones, S&P, NASDAQ, whatever, they are market cap weighted. So what that means is companies that have more massive market caps, if their stock moves, it's going to have a much more significant impact on that underlying index than a super, super small microcap. So Nvidia, all they said is I think we might be able to resume shipping our chips to China. They had paused because of the tariff stuff. And that's all they said. Stock flew up because it's such a big market cap. The NASDAQ went up. Okay? So, CPI, like I said, I'm not going to go through what every single thing is. But economists from the bigger banks were all pretty similar in their interpretation. Is that their view is that we are now starting to see the impact of tariffs on prices, and second half is going to be more inflationary. Prices are going to go up. Economists, who are these folks? Usually, or always, banks, sometimes mutual fund, there's like Fidelity, Charles Schwab. There are people that work there that analyze the economy, right? And so when these announcements come out, they analyze it and they talk about it. It's actually pretty interesting. I'm kind of a dork when it comes to this stuff, but I actually really like reading what they have to say. It's very factual, it's very analytical, but they all were very similar in their interpretation, in that, here we go. How big will the impact be in the second half? We don't know. But let me remind you of something, and this is why I think it's important. We talk about tariffs a lot, right? And it seems like every day, Russia, Europe, China, 10%, 50%, all over the place, right? Let's put that aside for a second. Who pays these tariffs? Is it Russia, China, Vietnam, whoever? No. No, 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 no. Yet, it is not. Let me remind you, and I'm going to read this because the way that CNBC defined tariffs, I think, is spot on. And it's easy to understand. So this is, here we go. Tariffs are a tax on imports from foreign nations. Fine. Here's the key. Paid by U.S. companies that import the goods and services. Paid by U.S. companies, right? So, Russia isn't paying these. Europe isn't, Canada, Mexico. The U.S. companies that buy the goods from those countries are. So, what does that mean? We've talked about this before. If you're a U.S. company and you're importing something from somewhere else, and all of a sudden you have a bill of 50% tax on whatever you're bringing in, again, you're not going to be like, cool, I'll pay that, and I'll just keep my prices the same. NFW. They're going to pass some of that on. They have to. Otherwise, they're going to start losing money. And they can become unprofitable. And that's not a good thing. So they're going to have to start passing on. And that's what we saw in this report today, is that now these tariffs are starting to have impact. The real question is what's going to happen in the second half, right? And that, from the economist's point of view, is that prices will continue to increase. The question is how much, right? And because the tariffs keep going all over the place, it's really hard to model out what that means. But the general consensus view is that we will see more inflation, higher prices in the second half. Period. We'll see. It'll give us stuff to talk about, right? Two more things that are not even related to the financial markets, but I just find super interesting. I don't know if you've been following this like Rosie O'Donnell Trump saga thing. It's awesome. So, if you don't know, Rosie O'Donnell moved to Ireland. I think it was right after Trump was elected. So she went before he went into office because she just didn't want to be here. She didn't want to be part of whatever he stood for, so she moved. And she's been very vocal. And Trump doesn't like that. So Trump was like, I'm just going to revoke her citizenship. And the back and forth between them, fantastic. Another thing. So Trump has now decided that he doesn't want the word soccer to be used in the United States. It's now going to be football. Because he's, just because. That's what they do everywhere else. So anywho, that's the update for today. I hope you have a good rest of your day. I am going to get some more shit done here. And thank you for all of you who have reached out. Thank you for those who are supporting me. You know who you are. I love you all. Take care. Have a great night.